The Jackson County Appraisal District presents Property Inspection. The following presentation is designed to present some common tasks appraisers are typically performing during the property inspection phase of the appraisal cycle. Measuring new or existing structures, translating the measurements into sketches, identifying or confirming relevant characteristics of properties, and photographing properties. We will then provide a detailed explanation of the measuring process and the standards and techniques that are followed, such as taking exterior measurements, rounding to the nearest foot, and labeling of the sketch segments. Property inspection, which consists of identifying and recording and inspecting or checking existing structures or improvements for changes, typically takes place from September through February. Texas Property Tax Code 25.181 states that the appraisal district has to identify properties to be appraised through physical inspection or other reliable means of identification, including deeds or other legal documentation, aerial photographs, land-based photographs, surveys, maps, and property sketches. Appraisers from the district may visit and inspect properties for various reasons, but the most common are to physically measure recently constructed homes and buildings, physically measure structural additions to existing homes and buildings, or confirm or correct any relevant data the district has about the property, such as quality, depreciation, or land characteristics. Since the size or square footage of a structure is an important element in the value, and physical measuring of the improvements is the most common activity performed during property inspection, it is necessary to elaborate on the standards and techniques Jackson County appraisers use when measuring and recording the dimensions of a structure. The appraiser is required to measure and sketch to scale on graph paper the major structures or improvements he or she observes on the property. The sketch will later be entered in the appraisal district's CAMA, or Computer-Assisted Mass Appraisal Software. The CAMA is discussed in another presentation, but is essentially a database that holds all relative information gathered about the property and assists in the final value calculations. The measurements and sketch are performed in a way that takes what is seen at the ground level and translates that into a top-down or bird's-eye view. Since construction takes place year-round and property inspection mainly occurs from September through February, the stage of construction on new residences and other buildings that an appraiser visits may vary from initial site prep to 100% complete and occupied. Since many homes or businesses are complete and occupied when the appraiser visits the property, it is the standard practice of the district to take all measurements from the outside of the structure in order to achieve a uniform standard. The appraiser will typically begin at one of the front corners of the structure and measure all the way across the front. As he or she proceeds across the front, sections of the building that extend out or in, commonly referred to as cuts, are noted, so they may be correctly drawn in the sketch. All measurements are rounded to the nearest foot. Once the total width to the nearest foot and the appropriate cuts and locations are identified, the appraiser goes back and measures the lengths of the identified cuts. He or she is then ready to sketch the front portion of the structure. Next, the appraiser will repeat the same process down one of the sides to get the length rounded to the nearest foot and add it to the sketch. He or she will then continue across the back and then finish with the last side. If the structure has more than one floor and is occupied, the appraiser will take note of upper roof lines and windows throughout the process in an effort to depict an accurate sketch of the upper floors. If the interior of a 2 or more floor structure is accessible, he or she will enter the property to ensure vaulted ceiling areas are not counted as measured square footage. As the appraiser is drawing the sketch, he or she labels each of the various segments on the graph paper, so they will be appropriately coded during entry into the CAMA system by a data entry technician. Main area is the term given to the living space or heated and cooled area of a residence or commercial building, and is what is commonly used when considering sales price per square foot. If a structure has more than one floor, the first is labeled Main Area 1, the second Main Area 2, and so on. The appraiser identifies and labels the segments of the sketch that should be drawn in the system as only one or more than one floor. Other common segments that are labeled are garages, open porches, patios, decks, balconies, and many more. The square footage of these segments is also calculated during the valuation of the improvement in order to account for the additive value they contribute to the total structure. Prior to leaving the property, if the structure or residence is new, the appraiser will take a photo and also note various characteristics to be entered in the CAMA system. Roof and foundation style, overall quality of the structure, and fireplaces are a few examples. If the appraiser is inspecting a property that already has improvements on it, he or she verifies that all of the segments listed on the field card are actually there and confirms the indicated measurements. Updated photos may also be taken. Anything that is new or not identified on the property record card will be measured and sketched so it can be added to the property in the district's CAMA system. Similarly, anything that is no longer there will be noted and removed from the property record. Once the appraiser has noted all pertinent characteristics of the property, taken all measurements or photos, and completed required sketches, additions, or corrections to the property record card, he or she is finished with the required inspection for the property. As mentioned previously, the field card will be returned to the office where a data entry technician will enter or delete the indicated information in the CAMA system, which will prepare the data for the valuation process that is further discussed in another presentation. We hope this was an informative insight into the property inspection phase of the appraisal process and the common tasks appraisers are typically performing, which are measuring new or existing structures, translating the measurements into sketches, identifying or confirming relevant characteristics of properties, and photographing properties. In addition, the detailed explanation of the measuring process and the standards and techniques that are followed, such as taking exterior measurements, rounding to the nearest foot, and the labeling of the sketch segments, was added to provide a further understanding of the procedures Jackson County appraisers utilize when inspecting a property. Thank you.